You are listening to The Real Men Feel Show with Andy Grant. Real Men Feel encourages men to allow and express all of their emotions. Despite what you may have been taught, all emotions do serve you. Real Men Feel is committed to engaging in discussions that most men aren't having, but you don't need to be a man to join us. The Real Men Feel Show is produced weekly for your growth and enjoyment. Listen to us on podcast platforms including iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and many more. You can also watch the show on YouTube by visiting realmenfeel.org/YouTube. Come back often and feel free to add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed or subscribe on iTunes by visiting realmenfeel.org/iTunes. You can follow us on Twitter at realmenfeelorg and at facebook.com/realmenfeelshow. All links mentioned in each episode are in the show notes found on the blog at realmenfeel.org. Your reviews, comments, feedback, and participation are welcome during the live show and anytime in our Facebook group, on Twitter, or at realmenfeel.org. Now, let's get into this week's show. Hello, and welcome to another edition of Real Men Feel. This is your host, Andy Grant. And one thing that men can feel and don't often talk about is strange and bizarre and, exploring the unknown. And I think all of us, at least as kids, you have this fascination with things you can't understand or explain. And my guest today is someone that kind of never grew up. He's made a career out of exploring the unknown and the fascinating. And so let's just jump right in. My guest today is author, podcaster, and student of the esoteric and metaphysical, Ronny LeBlanc.
Hey, Eddie, how are you, brother?
Very, very good. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
And we grew up in the same town. We're both from Leominster, Massachusetts, and there's enough of an age difference that I don't think we ever crossed paths in high school or anything.
Didn't. No, yeah. Right.
Or if we did, we made such little impact on each other we don't recall it.
That's correct.
Cool. But so I know you. Yeah, there was a place. So I know you wrote a book called Monsterland. You have a podcast called Monsterland. Yeah. I remember Monsterland only as a place you went to drink at.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. And Monsterland doesn't even exist anymore, right? That's a Walmart now.
Right. Exactly. That whole area has kind of been transformed. It's been, populated now. It used to be a place that I remember my friends going to ride their bikes or dirt bikes in the sand dunes by the power lines. And as I got older, people were going there to have bonfires and partying. Yeah. So that was my only kind of connection to it. I never thought of what it meant.
Okay. So, but did the paranormal and unexplainable, was that always attractive to you as a kid?
No question. I used to go to the library in Leominster, and I'd always come out with a stack of books on animals. And so I knew everything around North America. I could, tell you what lived over this region, whatever. And I remember walking by a book that was about Bigfoot. And it was Cryptozoology and Mysterious America by Lauren Coleman, books about undiscovered primates and animals. And I was like, okay, I'm in. What's this about? And then that was kind of the doorway into the strange, where that led into UFOs and all paranormal and this other stuff. And I kind of dabbled in it a little bit, but I also grew up in a Christian home where that was deemed to be automatically evil, right? It wasn't something that you should be kind of messing with, the dark side, the light side. But I was always curious about these mysteries, these unexplained events, and I always felt like there was something more to this place than what we see.
Yeah, cool. So I bet we took up some of the same books because.
Oh yeah, I guarantee.
The first things I remember going up and going like, wow, what it was the show In Search of Finding Nemo. Yeah, that was like my favorite.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So great.
But I had Bigfoot books and Loch Ness Monster things and UFOs. And so it wasn't necessarily a personal experience that you had that prompted this. It was just interest in this as a subject.
But there was a moment a little bit later when I was around 12, 11, riding my bike alone on my way to Monsterland. And I used to live near Fallbrook School on Union Street. And so you would kind of go behind there and you can kind of connect through the other side. And I was always avoid this trail. And I had this experience where I decided to kind of go down the trail and something kind of stopped me dead in my tracks. I couldn't see anything, but you had that sense of something, you were being watched. And the forest erupted in front of me. Like the Predator is the best way I could describe it. There were footsteps that reverberated and shook me. And I was on my bike with my feet on the ground, kind of holding it in between my legs. And I couldn't move. And something just made the force erupt. And as soon as it kind of happened, a few seconds, and I was like looking, seeing trees sway. I'm like, something that big had to be a moose or a deer or something, or bear. And as soon as I could, it stopped and I took off. I feel like I kind of regained my composure. And I was pedaling away going, you know, what the hell was that? If that was a moose, I would have seen it. And I could have put it aside in my, as I went forward in life, but I've always, it kind of stood with me, like, didn't seem right. And that was my experience there on my way in those woods.
So that sounds like something right out of Stranger Things.
Oh yeah, it was crazy. And again, you kind of go, there's no way that was, your mind was kind of playing tricks with you or whatever it was, you know? So there's always that doubt that we have. Even today, I have these different experiences and I still doubt what I just witnessed or experienced. You know, I still have that. Did that just happen?
So if you doubt some of the things that you experience, what's been the reaction of others as you shared them?
You know, what's interesting is the other people that I've talked to have similar experiences, or they have just strange encounters that they can't explain, that they feel like they can talk to me about. I think that's the one cool thing about coming out with the book and now the podcast and working on some other projects too, to kind of just kind of open people up to kind of feel like they don't have to be laughed at or ridiculed. They can kind of come forward and share their stories. And we talked about this, you know, it's like 10 years ago, it was really taboo. Now people are willing to talk about it. They're willing to hear about it. Everyone knows ancient aliens now, you know, different shows and stuff like that.
Cool. And so let's see, when you first came out with the book, like how many years ago was that?
So that 2016, so 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And I had spoken at New England UFO Conference, Susan Spooler, the year before, and I had planned to have that book done, and it wasn't completed, and I wasn't ready to kind of publish it yet. And so that kind of got me into starting to speak at conferences in New England, libraries, different bookstores and things like that, and kind of realized, oh, there's more to once you're done or getting into writing a book. There's a whole marketing aspect of it, a whole thing of kind of getting the word out and helping you kind of promote yourself.
And as you've been traveling and speaking, have people come up to you and told you something that even like you're like, I can't grasp that. Like
Yes, I had one gentleman actually come to me. He was about 85, and this was at the New England UFO Conference. I was at the table, had my books, and he came in with his son, who was, I would say, around my age. And he started talking to me and talking about how Anunnaki are present on this planet. Currently now, he met someone that is an alien that's 200 years old. There's a vortex above Fitchburg, where the rock where they paint the Leominster Fitchburg. And I was like, okay, and all these different things. His son was like this, going, yep, yep. So I was kind of, I don't know, but then inside I was like, oh, this could be something great, really great here. Does this guy know something that, we really don't? And so that really, still to this day, I wonder, Yeah,
because so many of these things, like you can research and read books and talk to people, but it's hard to scientifically verify some of these things. Yeah, absolutely.
And I think what's been kind of taught to you, just kind of dump eyewitness testimony. It's not reliable, but that's kind of all you really have. And if someone tells you, hey, I saw something that wasn't a bear.
Yeah.
And you got to believe them. I've talked to outdoorsmen. They're like, Ronnie, this thing was on two legs and it ran across. It looked at me. It was not human. It was not a bear, and you're like, whoa, I want to have that experience, face to face. But at the same time, like, man, well, he ran in the house.
So it wasn't since you were 12 that you haven't come face to face with something that in the woods that you didn't know what the heck it was?
Yeah, like I'm still waiting for that real kind of encounter where the thing just walks across, in front. And I feel like I was very close to something, and I don't know what that was. But as I started researching it, there were similar stories of this kind of like interdimensional Sasquatch, and I was kind of like, come on, But now there's a lot of different paranormal connections to it, and it's very interesting. The Native Americans talk about it as well, that they used to live in two different worlds. They could come in and out. And we're learning more about portals and dimensions and that stuff. So I find that all that fascinating. I don't think I'll ever be sick of that.
Yeah, no, that's cool. So before I got really into different spiritual work and energy work and things, I was on a vacation in Guatemala, and I went to Tikal, the ancient city, and I had a local guide showing me. He's like, "Oh, stop and feel this." I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "Do you feel that?" And like, I felt like this warmth. I felt like what felt like an animal that wasn't visible there. He's like, "The jaguar was here recently." I'm like, "Oh my God!" Like, he taught me like to feel and sense energy.
Holy cow!
And he was saying that like the Mayans weren't destroyed by anyone else, that they saw invaders. Yes, they went to another dimension. The whole society just like, and this had been his folklore for forever. And I've heard people say that same sort of thing around animals, and fairies and unicorns were once, and dragons were all like here with man at some point. But no, then they realized, we hunted them, we tried to destroy them, so they raised their vibration to a whole other plane of existence. And
and see that makes sense to me. It's fascinating too, is that again, at a conference, asked them, the audience, like, how many people believe Bigfoot's an animal, and how many people believe that it's an interdimensional being? Because that's why you can't find bones. That's why you can't find a body. That's why there's weird, strange, high strangeness with that. And people are like, yeah, that makes sense. And I'm like, really? I'm still trying to grasp there's a creature out there, but then you're willing to go that these things are interdimensional. And more and more I dig into it, it makes sense.
Yeah.
So it's fascinating to hear that.
Yeah, because it's amazing. And that's why I love there are elements of folklore that are in every society, scattered, way before the telegraph or the internet, there's no way to communicate. And every culture had a dragon. Every culture had, trolls. Every culture created these same things separately. So, some root was common everywhere.
There's truth in there somewhere. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I always believe that. And it's always been kind of like a knowing where you're kind of like, I know there's something there. I know there's something true to that.
Cool. So growing up or as an adult, were you ever kind of picked on, mocked, and ridiculed for some of these interests that you have?
Oh, absolutely. Even when the book came out, I think even beforehand, I was talking about doing it and writing a book, and my friends would be laughing at me and be like, okay, you gonna find Bigfoot? Hey, you find Bigfoot yet? And da-da-da-da. And so it was a real challenge for me too, because for a couple of years I decided I was kind of on the fence whether I was going to publish it or not, or even decide to sit down and really write it. And it was because of that fear element, that ridicule factor. But I said, what, F it. I got to if I'm going to do this, I got to just go, balls on the wall and just do it. So it was a tough thing to do. But once I did do it, and then see how people started gravitating towards it, and it's kind of just kept on taking off. And now I have, Maddie Blake from AF and the History Channel doing the podcast with me, which is great. And just a lot of cool things happening. So it's been fun.
Yeah. And so how recent was the podcast created?
So I started the podcast myself a couple years back. I did about 5 episodes. I actually filmed at Leominster Access TV, did it in the studio, and just trying to, and I got some great guests. I got Larry Warren. I had gotten Nick Redfern and some others from, speaking at conferences. But I did it, and then I was watching, I just really felt like I was missing something. So it kind of went on the back burner for a while, and I started doing WAF with Maddie and Nick, doing Monthly on Monday. And Maddie ended up talking to me, and he's like, what's going on with your podcast? So I was like, just kind of, I don't know. He goes, we should get that going again. Let's do it together. I'm like, oh my God, it'd be great. And so that kind of got reborn with him, and it just took off to another level where he's kind of brought that real professional radio element to it. He's a real showman, but he has a passion for the paranormal, and we complement each other really well. And we have a lot of fun, and it's been a fun ride.
All right, good. So it was the subject matter that lured him in. He had his own experience and interest. Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was great. It was cool.
Cool. And I know from talking to you that you have some other projects that just keep unfolding. Is there anything you can tease about or anything now?
Yeah. So I did some through the podcast, Maddie does a lot of stuff with Curse of Oak Island and History Channel. and Prometheus is the producer of that. They also do Ancient Aliens. And so they got asked by Travel Channel to come out with a show similar to Ancient Aliens. Like they want to have their Ancient Aliens, and it's called In Search of Monsters. So it's the same kind of show on sticks setup where you have the authors and experts, you know, chiming in and they're cutting to these different things. So I did about 5 or 6 episodes. So that show comes out this April. It launches. And so it'll be exciting to see that kind of come out. And then Maddie and I also signed a deal with McGilla Entertainment out of New York to develop Monsterland as a TV series, a reality TV series.
Wow.
So getting, you know, it's been fun and just trying to like keep on pushing it forward and see if we can make that happen. There's still a big mountain to climb, but the ride has been awesome, and I've been grateful for every moment. It's been a fun.
And at least people are like, here's the mountain. It's like this doesn't sound like the guy that had a book and then like, oh, I have to market this. Like it sounds like you've learned a lot in the time.
It's been like a school kind of like, and I come from a marketing and advertising background. So I try to leverage that a little bit, but there was a crazy learning process along the way of what works best and seeing what other authors do and what, even looking at what bands do and kind of using those elements to promote. And the whole thing with, ended up doing stuff with Wachusett Brewing Company, creating a hard cider. That's just a seasonal thing and something fun that we do now every Halloween. And that was like a dream that I had before, in the sense of like, I wanted to create a Monsterland beer. I envisioned it being a stout, so it kind of matched the book cover, which is the black, you know, like this.
Yep.
And they ended up turning into a hard cider, but using apples from Leominster and cool stuff where it's like, oh my God, that came to fruition. It took 4 years, and it was like an idea that just kind of popped. But I think when you have something like that you kind of believe in, you really want to see happen, it kind of finds a way. The universe finds a way to.
Yeah.
You know,
and it's so interesting that the Leominster connection. So for anyone out there that doesn't realize it, Johnny Appleseed was born in Leominster, Massachusetts.
Yes.
And so apples are a big deal. And Johnny Appleseed was an actual human being. He's not a Paul Bunyan. He's not
John Chapman.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's funny that all that is coming to fruition, because me growing up in Leominster, and I kind of put my mindset on the town, but because I was very depressed, I was suicidal, and I thought, this is because of Leominster, this is this city.
Right.
But it's really neat to hear, no, you grew up in the same place, and you're like, you know, full of life and all these adventures, and still there, and all this goodness coming out of it.
But I did leave. I did leave after high school. I went to LA, and I was out in California for almost 10 years, and I did feel like I wanted to get out of here. I did feel like that kind of pull at times. But I still there's a lot of great people here. My family's still here. My wife's family's here. My wife's from Leominster. So yeah, I try to focus on the bright side of things. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. And I know when I've traveled and would tell people I'm from Leominster, and, you know, we're responsible for Johnny Appleseed and plastics.
Plastic. Yeah.
And they're like, Johnny Appleseed is real. And some years ago with friends, I did a short film about Johnny Appleseed.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
no kidding.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I can see that, man.
Yeah, we get it. I think there's a copy at the library. They loved it so much.
Are you kidding?
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's great.
No, it was goofy. But yeah, I was in film festivals in LA and up and down. For whatever reason, it was a huge hit on the West Coast. So but it was a trip. But
it was the first Disney. It was a Disney film back, I think, in 1927 or something like that.
Yeah.
Right, Johnny Appleseed.
Yeah. Yep. But so you mentioned that you had a dream about this, and when we were first talking, I wanted to give you a chance to talk about subjects that you don't really get to go in deep on your own show, and you talked that dreams was one of them.
Yeah, so, I have one very interesting that keeps on popping in my mind, and at the time, you know, I've always looked at dreams as being a couple of things. I could always wake up in the morning. I still do, very vivid dreams, and some of them would scare me that I didn't want to have them at times. But I would have them so vividly that I'm like, all right, did I really visit a place? Am I in some kind of other world? It had that real feeling to it. But one was a dream where I was walking down a trail, and there was a cliff to my right, and all of a sudden this white wolf came up from the cliff and came towards me and had blue eyes. And it was kind of snarling and stopped me in the track. And I just looked down and I grabbed a stick and I threw the stick towards the cliff, and the wolf kind of playfully went after it. And it was almost like I was trying to figure out, is this my dog or something like that? Or is this some stray weird wolf? So I woke up in the morning and I wrote it down, and I try to keep track of dreams, and I don't do a very good job of it at times, but I try to do. And that one just stayed with me. Well, a few weeks later, I had a job interview in Boston, and I was going in there. And again, I was wondering what was the significance of this dream. I was trying to figure it out. And if it was like something, hey, maybe I watched a movie or read something and put the white wolf in there and blah, blah, blah. Is the white wolf me with blue eye, you know, all this stuff. So I go to the interview, I meet with the hiring manager, and he goes, hey, the CEO would like to meet you. It's kind of like the second, we want to take you to the next level. I'm like, great. So I'm sitting there, I'm waiting, and I'm looking down, and all of a sudden the CEO comes walking over, and he sits right in front of me. And I look up, and the CEO, Andy, has white hair, wearing a white shirt, and blue eyes. And he's like, how you doing? And he had this presence of a wolf. And now in my dream, I had it as a negative kind of thing, like avoid, throw them off your tracks and throw them down the trail, like get them off your trail. And so as I was doing the interview, I just was not getting good vibes about the place. I felt he was lying to me about the job, the role, how the money was, all these different things. And so my gut was telling me, get out, you know? And so I kind of finished, I was picking up on it pretty quickly that I was like, all right, yeah, no. And after I get out of the interview, it was a couple days later, just did a little more research on how they would pay. And they're like, oh yeah, we pay you once a month and all this crazy stuff. We could keep your commission check and not, you know, all this. I was like, yeah, no, I'm out.
Yeah.
So then I was like, oh wow, you know, that dream was almost like telling me ahead of time. And I just was fascinated by that. I was like, okay, who delivered that? Where did that come from? And that's, I've always had this affinity for like really trying to understand dreams. And so I always want to talk to you about this kind of stuff too, because I know you're modern mystery school and these things that I'm still learning as well, which is awesome.
Yeah. I mean, so again, it's interesting to bring this up. It's making me think about things I hadn't thought about in a long time. But growing up, the dreams that I still remember as a kid were I had series of recurring dreams, recurring nightmares. Of like end of the world and giant robots like ripping me apart and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. And I can't remember, let's see, my childhood took horrible turns at an age when I started getting molested by a neighbor. And I'm like, I could never like figure out like, wow, were my dreams before, after that? Like I didn't keep a dream.
Right. Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
But I knew that, these like traumatic, scary dreams, sequences of them were happening. And around the age that something was happening in my life. And then later in like, age 12 and 13, I kept having this recurring dream that me and a friend being forced along this like cliff on a mountain with just like a path, just enough to keep our feet on, and we keep getting forced, and it'd be Dracula forcing me along, or a monster, or just some like mean, and I just kept being forced down this path that was disappearing and disappearing. And I would wake up screaming, or wake up, I can't breathe. And whenever I'd wake up, I'd be face down on the pillow, like, I woke up because I really couldn't breathe. And there's like this Fred Krueger shit of like almost dying and being tortured in all these dreams over and over. But again, that was around the time that my first suicide attempts were at that age. And I just, what came first? I don't know. Was all this like, my psyche, my dream life is like telling me that, I'm unhappy and I'm hiding things, whatever it is. And I feel I'm being forced down this path to just be the good 12-year-old, whatever that might have been. Yeah.
Oh my God.
But again, with the mystery school, with other things I've discovered, we talked about being multi-dimensional earlier.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, that's dreams. Like our consciousness goes to sleep and we're free to ride the planes of other dimensions. And, it's a great, it's almost like a joke that it's a thing like Cheech and Chong get high and talk about this. Like, are we dreaming now? And that's reality, right? Say, is sleep or awake? Is that what we're here for? Which part of the day is the part that matters most? But
yes. Yeah. And it's interesting. You said that too. Like my son, maybe, I don't know, like a year ago had kind of said, you ever wonder if we're our being awake is actually the dream, and when we're sleeping is actually when we're supposed to be. And I was like, oh man, you're on to something, man. Like there is more to this life, and I don't believe that, death is just a doorway to another place. I feel like our soul is everlasting. We go on. My sister passed of cancer back 6 years, going on 7 years now. And, we feel her in the house, and there's different moments where, whether it's through animals or different things, she makes her presence known. Yeah. And during significant moments, and her color is orange. So even like the sky would be orange if we're at the Cape with my family, and we spread her ashes out the Atlantic. Mm-hmm. So she's kind of part of the nature now and stuff. And so it's pretty powerful. Yeah.
Yeah. And I do love that kind of as people have become more open-minded, or as just consciousness of humanity is risen, more people are willing to talk about things, mention things. It's not, not like crazy uncle, don't ask him about the thing he saw,
Yes.
Stuff like that. Yeah.
Totally.
Cool. And so one of the things I also do is read the Akashic records.
Yes.
And that's kind of your soul's recording. It's a vibrational plane. Every religion, every culture has referred to it. But one thing I was told about dreams is that every night when you go to sleep, the angels, beings of light from the Akashic records take you to the Akashic records. So you empty your memory into the records that way, and then you're returned to the dream. So
really?
Yeah. So reliving experiences, and because even scientists, I've heard like dreams talking about it. It's the way the mind processes and can burn off scary images and just all these things. But like, that sounds that's very close to releasing it into the records for, and downloading it or whatever.
Yeah, totally. Wow. That's great.
Yeah. The more, and this is always as a kid too, you find something that's interesting and can't be explained, or just makes you want to learn more, and and keep going.
And there's that pull, always been that magnetic pull. And there's been times where I go, all right, am I crazy? Like, what am I doing? But there's been like this drive and this pull to kind of, I feel like it's part of my purpose. I know it's not all of it, but I know it's been a big part, and it's still going to be a bigger part going forward. So it's cool.
Yeah. Awesome. And I love how you say that too, that a lot of people come to me for healing work and spiritual work, and they wonder, what's my purpose? And the answer all the time, like, we're way beyond, as beings, you're way beyond one purpose.
Right.
Yeah. And it's not, there's not like one career. There's not like, oh, you were born to be a veterinarian and that's all you can be and that's how you'll be happy. Like, no, we're all beyond that now.
Absolutely. No. I firmly believe that. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, it could be your dream of having a hard cider comes true, but doesn't mean that was not your only mark in this world.
Exactly.
Cool. So to get back to kind of aspirational dreams you have in Fully Awake, in dream at night. So do you ever find yourself wishing that you had some of the experiences you're reading about, or do you kind of like being the researcher and pulling together other stories?
I've been a blend of both, where I've had, UFO sightings, orb sightings, different things. So I've definitely been a blend of both, where I've been kind of almost like John Keel, kind of experiencing them as I'm researching them, and I noticed things started picking up even more. My wife has had experiences too, going from childhood and then us together, my kids with us together. So it's been wild. And I'm still, again, that I feel like the learning will never stop. Like I love to read, and I love to hear, all these different stories. You start seeing patterns after a while, and you start seeing, and just reaffirms too, I think, other people are relieved to hear that you're not the only one that saw a shadow person or had this experience. You're not crazy. These things can kind of come in and out, and you're experiencing these things for real.
Yeah. And especially when it comes to like the actual definition of UFO, just unidentified flying object. Correct. Like I see stuff flying around all the time. I don't know what it is. So like, it's pretty easy to opt to that.
Yeah. And it's like, you see this, light or something. Doesn't mean it's a spaceship or anything like that, but it's something that could be something that's, we're still learning about, ball energy and everything else. But
cool. Is there have you come across anything kind of that you weren't aware of that just kind of blows your mind? You're like, oh, I'd love to experience that or learn more about that aspect? Or
Shamanism. And we talked a little bit about this before. Again, I feel like this draw. I've always felt this pull towards Native American culture, being one with nature. And I feel like this whole Monsterland path has actually brought me to be more spiritual. I've always been a spiritual person growing up. I've always had a good connection, I felt, with God, but I never felt like it was this guy in a beard. I felt like it was something a little bit bigger and greater that's kind of chi, that kind of, so I've always been Eastern tradition, but shamanism as of late, I'm really fascinated with that. And it's interesting to see there's a rise and a kind of resurgence of that too now in modern times.
Cool. Yeah. When I had a vacation in Peru, and again, it was a couple years before I got into all of this type of work. But a shaman was there and we talked about this and he gave me a bottle of ayahuasca.
Oh, wow.
And someone had told us at the airport, a guy was like, you going to the jungle? You could have ayahuasca. We're like, what's that? Oh, this is amazing, like jungle acid and you'll trip. I'm like, really? Have you done it? He's like, no, I've never do that. But he was, this local Peruvian was telling us. So I asked the guy, can I try this? He's like, no. And the guy's like, no, please, I'll get in trouble. I'm like, but that was, maybe a year later, I got into holotropic breath work, which is another just way to get to the state. And I met someone in the US that grew the ingredients to make ayahuasca.
Wow.
And went to her house and had the full ayahuasca experience here. And
what was that like? I have a friend too, Mike Devon, who's from Leominster, who's in Whitesnake.
Yep.
And he's had some different ayahuasca experiences. I know he's going on another one with a shaman soon. I'm always fascinated. There's a fear part of that to me. I've done shrooms and stuff like that growing up, but
ayahuasca was, I experienced being multidimensional.
Wow.
I was aware of being alive in some form on at least a dozen different planes.
Unreal.
Yeah. And so some people get that, but it's hard to, but that's like what I walked away from it the most with. But I had such a lot of people have ayahuasca and they throw up, they get sick.
Right. Yeah. I've heard yes.
And I was cool. I'm like, I got it down. And some people I started seeing like shadows and this is just kind of like trippy. And the person leading the ceremony said, would anyone like more? And I was like, yeah, I'm going to get more. and later she told me she gave me another full dose. She just like, you seem open, you're ready. So
wow.
So other people are done. It's like 3 a.m. They're snacking and talking around me, and I'm just still gone. I am flying through the stratosphere. I can't communicate. I can hear everything they're saying, but nothing works to communicate. So I'm just like laughing and go and just making noise. But I went through like my Hall of Fame of every pet I've ever owned, and it felt like they were walking on me and with me.
Oh my God!
As it began to take effect, it was just like the roots from planet Earth were coming up, and I felt roots going through my whole body, like I was becoming part of this plant.
Wow.
But yeah, it tasted like death. I'm amazed I didn't get sick, but it's just like, yeah. But again, people are like, is Andy okay? And I just like, and they're like, oh, I guess he's okay. And I'm like, yes, that's the best way to communicate with you is my cackle that, yeah, everything's great. It's fantastic, But so I kept going until like 7 a.m. I like, ayahuasca tripped, whatever, had this experience for like 8 to 10 hours.
Holy crap.
And again, the person leading the ceremony said, I've never had, in my experience of doing this for 17 years, no one's ever had a better first experience. I'm like, well, great. I don't need to do this again, right? If I have my peak experience, I don't need to keep.
Right. One and done, baby.
Yeah. Because I've met other people that go down to Peru and do the tours and have it all the time. And they're like, no, I've gotten sick. I've gotten bored. I've had nightmares. Never had some like great mystical
spiritual experience. Yeah. So will you do it again? Or you feel like you've had enough of it to kind of?
No, I really feel like I wouldn't do it again. There was a time I thought I might for the heck of it, but also things I've done with the mystery school tell me that to do that again would kind of like take my vibration back down from things I've done since then. Yeah. So, maybe everyone grew up in Leominster, did shrooms and stuff, and you do that, and we would run around camping and go bananas. But now, like the real growth from shamanism, from ancient rituals is to take a substance to have an experience and then just go within.
Right.
That's what amazed me. Like again, soaring through different planes, and it was like Avatar in 5D and just things
Oh my
around
God.
words. But I'm like, nope, that happened. You know, so
Wow.
but while I was just laying on someone's living room floor for 8 hours.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. But yeah, I've done. Yeah, that's probably the craziest thing I've tried. But again, they're tools that bring us spiritual growth and personal growth and insights.
Show us that we're connected, and then we're connected.
Yeah, and but
talk about the
it's not
levels.
just, it's not a drug. You know, it's not just some party thing. Yeah.
Tell me about the levels you said you experienced with that. Like you said, like a dozen, and like the higher self kind of thing.
They were so subtle. It was just like I was aware of me being on the floor. I was aware of me flying through, you know, pets. I was aware of just all these different planes of reality happening at the same time. It was like that. It was like having a moment of like full consciousness of being physical, animal, spiritual, of witnessing it all from even this higher level of like, oh, there's all the people on Earth trying to get shit done, and then here, it was, you're making me really interested. I'm going to go like look at my own diary. What more did I write back when this happened?
So awesome. Yeah, and that's, I think, learning about what you're doing too, and I think people are understanding about energy and energy work and the angelic realm and all these different things. I've had some interesting experiences around that too, and I'm just, again, fascinated by it, that I want to keep on learning. And you can't always get everything from a book, but you know, I think it's one of kind of a stepping stone, where then you kind of meet different people and you learn things that way, and your own personal experiences. So it's definitely a journey.
Yeah, I used to be pissed that, oh, I did all this work and, oh, there's more? What the hell? But now I'm like, oh, good, there's more. You know?
There's no end. I didn't reach the end of it yet.
Yeah. Like when I'm not done, I didn't just like fix everything. I'm not healed. I'm not, you know, but yeah. And some people will come to me and ask those questions, and well, good. Like if you were done, you wouldn't still be here.
Right.
Yes. You know, if you found your purpose and you did it, you know, well, then your last breath is around the corner.
Right. True.
Yeah.
Right.
But again, like you said, and when I was suicidal, when I was a kid and thought I wanted to die, I did not believe in any sort of afterlife. I didn't like how I felt, so I just wanted everything to stop.
Wow.
And as I've gotten into the more spiritual realm and talked with, you know, I'll say more enlightened teachers, that like I was never going to escape anything. Like whatever's bugging you at the soul level, energetic level, even after you're dead, like, no, that's still going to be shit you're dealing with, just on a different plane.
Right. Yeah. Now, I'm curious, when you had those, how old were you when that happened, when you were having those feelings?
Oh, as early as 8 until like 27.
Now, was that during that time period? I think it was 85 or something in Leominster, where there was a big stretch of suicides.
Yeah. And that kind of like, I had made an attempt, and then I think we were on like ABC News as being, you know, this hotbed of suicidal action in Massachusetts town. Yeah. And it almost made me cling to this identity too much, like this sick, oh, good, now I'm known for being suicidal guy. And so it's just really the story. But yeah, it was that period.
Well, I heard some interesting things around that, because like Lauren Coleman, the author, he came and he was investigating around that time. But I guess the Leominster police had felt like some stranger, they got reports of a stranger coming to town and teaching the kids about Satanism and make, you know, sacrifices. And as soon as kids just started kind of like killing themselves, he took off. And that's a rumor. And again, we talked about myths and stories, and but there's some truth to things. And I've always wondered about that, and curious that you were going through it during that time.
I knew kids who died at that time, and you know, I don't recall being in a satanic class at all. But hey, I can't speak for everyone. But and that's when, you know, so I was not raised with any organized religion, which I thought made me an atheist. So like, I remember being like Cub Scouts and stuff, and you had to like read a Bible passage to get a badge. And I was like, why should I have to do this? And I'm an atheist. I'm like, no, I didn't know anything, but I thought that's what it meant. But since then, you know, like evil's a real thing. Right. Yeah. And it can, like, we talked about more and life wants more. The universe the universe is consistently expanding at a faster and faster rate. Yes.
Yep.
So everything is about more. Everything's about growth. And the definition from the mystery school that I really like for evil is evil wants to stop progression. So evil wants us to go back, right?
Reverse.
Doesn't want you to be doesn't want you to be aware of that. You're an immortal being. You're not to be aware of that. There's more planes of reality than the one where you go to work every day. So yeah, so that's it's real, and it can be caught up. And I could have when I did not like myself at all, and thought it was like life's fault. And thought it was like Lemonster's fault that there was something wrong here. I'm not fitting in. Yeah. So I could have easily fallen into a cult. I could have easily fallen into heavy drug use. There were times when I wanted that.
You were like Putty at that moment where someone could have just said, "Oh, you're going this way."
Right. But again, in hindsight, and no, the universe, life supports us all.
What pulled you out of that? What?
It was finally just doing the same thing. It took me multiple failed attempts to end my life to realize maybe this isn't what I'm supposed to do. Like something beyond me is making me stay alive.
Yes.
So how can I dive into that? How can I dig into that path more then? And that's really it's not the path I recommend. I've met other people that made one attempt and saw the light, bang, no, I was like, I woke up in Leominster Hospital emergency room, opened my eyes, and I was pissed. And so I was angrier, and I was put into mental hospitals. I was put on all sorts of drugs. I had horrible side effects. So the treatment that people tried to give me and help me, it made me go darker and deeper. So that's why it took again multiple tries to end my life before accepting that maybe I'm supposed to do something else.
Right. Yeah, you have a greater purpose here than there's a reason.
Yeah. And that led to me, going public, sharing my story, writing some of my books, and again talking about fear of being ridiculed and stuff. And I know, but every time I push through a fear, every time I'm willing to be more vulnerable than I have in the past, I get rewarded. I hear from people saying, "Oh, me too. I thought I was alone." And it's, it's similar to the things that you're investigating and dealing with.
Right. Too. It's almost like when, you start kind of losing a little steam, and then someone kind of tells you about that story or experience, and it kind of keeps you going. It kind of says, I'm helping people in this process.
Yeah. And I've even had, I must be networking with some good people. I've had psychiatrists send clients to me because the person thinks they're going crazy. And I'm like, oh man, you're awakening. Like you're having super vivid dreams. You're being aware of things. There are people spending thousands of dollars chasing what's happening to you naturally. You're not crazy. Breathe into it. You're okay. And it's been amazing.
That's amazing. That is so cool.
But yeah, there are a couple doctors in Cambridge that I never met, didn't know, searched for me somehow and decided, oh, this guy can kind of bridge that gap.
Wow. Yeah. That's fascinating.
Yeah. So it's mental illness, suicidal, it can lead to some good things if you get through the shit of it. And it's true for everything. There is light on the other side of whatever darkness we all face.
Right.
Yeah.
Agreed.
It's just having the wherewithal, the courage, the support system to realize you're not the darkness.
Right.
Again, when suicidology, when it was just big, and it was you could be, especially an unhappy kid, it gave me a sense of identity.
Yeah.
Right. So I had to burn through that and realize, oh wait, there's a better identity by choosing to live and embrace things. Yeah.
And that was kind of I grew up in the grunge, years and stuff like that, where, back and I'm a loser and all that. It was that kind of the attitude too, which was crazy how we kind of gravitated towards that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. No, because it's easier for, human beings, the ego, whatever buzzword you want to give to it, but it's somehow easier to put yourself down. It's easier to go into the negative. It's easy. It certainly is easier to give up than to push through something.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny you say that too. Is I remember before I moved to California too, I was really I knew it was all about people that are successful. It's really kind of having control over your mind and kind of you have to work hard. You have to do these different things. I just remember kind of pumping my mind with Anthony Robbins and anything else that I could to kind of help me go after my dreams. Because originally I went to LA to be a screenwriter, and I loved movies and I wanted to do that. And then had friends from Leominster that were living out there, like Mike Devin, these other guys that we started doing music, and I was singing in a band. And then I was doing that for a couple of years on Sunset and playing around California. So it kind of got sidetracked, but I was like, all right, I'm going with this. This isn't the plan, but let's go for this ride. Yeah. And that was a fun way to learn also about like guerrilla marketing and doing those different things. But I knew music was like a healing component, and I wanted to be a part of that in some way, shape, or form. And then writing too, I think that helped me. I never envisioned writing a book. The last thing I wanted to do. And, but it all kind of came to be, and it's still just awesome.
Yeah. And it's funny, more connections that we have. So for a while I was a screenwriter, and I took a trip to LA. I took a trip to Hollywood and met producers. I've had a couple things optioned. And then one day I got, you've got to tell your story. I was like, wow. Oh. And so I've done nonfiction since then. But it was like,
that's crazy. I didn't know we had that connection too. Yeah. That's amazing, man.
Yeah. I first started shaving my head because I was going to move to LA, and I was prepared to live in my car and be homeless to make it work. But before I did, there was a movie being shot in Leominster, and I got a job as a PA on this production being made in Leominster. And I ended up with like assistant director credit because like I knew what I was doing and helped out and made up the ranks. Oh my God. But yeah, so I got to have the experience, and all the crew was from LA, and they're like, "This is beautiful. Don't go to LA. It sucks. This town is amazing." I was like, "Leominster's amazing?" Like, wow. So it was just a trip, and I met my wife. I met her while I was working in Leominster on this movie that kept me from going to LA. Yeah. So it's just, again, life supports us. I used to think, the universe is rigged against me and life just sucks and then you die. But when you can, again, see the challenges just as challenges, not as who you are.
Yes.
Like it freaking works out.
Right.
And I feel like you're really riding on the crest of the wave of it works out.
Yeah, I feel like I am. I feel like I'm still dreaming. I'm still like I'm 45. So I'm realizing my time, the clock's ticking, but I'm trying to appreciate everything. I have 4 kids. I have a beautiful wife, and but I want to have fun and do more things. And it's been a blast.
Cool. So what sort of conscious dreams do you have for Monsterland, for yourself, or for what experiences you have next?
I don't really see myself like I'm not in the, I guess, quest to be famous or anything like that, but if we can make a TV show out of this thing and get more people aware that there is a connection between this phenomena, there's more to this life, there's other levels, helping people come to that awareness. I think that's the greater purpose too. And that gets me excited. And I feel like if that's the greater purpose, then it will happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Yeah. So just, and again, introduce you, talk that you're kind of a perpetual student. So you're a student and teacher all at the same time, depending on who you're talking to.
More student than teacher, but
yeah, but you can at least, the best students become a student and then just, pass it on to the next person who thinks you're their teacher. But you're like, oh, I just learned this 5 minutes ago, but I'll tell you about it.
Right.
Yeah. And again, you really have a great rapport and energy about yourself to really be knocking it out of the park. I see why you're successful. Podcast and radio and TV is seeing it too. So.
Well, I'm trying to be just in the moment. And again, it's tough when there's stuff kind of going on and you tend to focus on worry. I worry a lot. So I try to just, enjoy what's happening right now and learn from this. And you start seeing things when you're looking too. You seek what you shall find, so.
Yeah. I mean, some of the things that help me the most now are things I ridiculed and made fun of. And I think like, that's the sign. Like the thing that you ridicule mock the most is going to be the thing that, that's going to help you so much when you're willing to open up to it.
The irony, there is a scriptwriter in the sky, right?
Yeah, yes. Yeah. And life is just full of, plot twists.
Oh, it really is. It is amazing. One of those plot twists was, And it's funny things when you speak out loud about things. I moved back from California, and I moved in with some buddies in Mahogany Run, those different condos. We had different friends living in different ones, and it was like party time. And I was talking to my roommate. I said, I lived in California for almost 10 years. I was looking for my dream girl, never found her. I was at that point where I was like, I don't think there's a girl out there for me that's that right one. And I said, I'll tell you what, she's not in frickin' Leominster. And the last thing, she's not in a bar in Leominster. Not 2 weeks later, I go to EJ Maroney's. Remember EJ Maroney's? And there's my current wife, Amy, bartending behind the bar. And I was like, who's that? And I had known her from high school, but didn't really know her, and hit it off. And 3 months later, we're engaged. 3 months later, we're married. And now we got 4 kids 15 years later, still in Leominster. Yeah. It was crazy.
That's funny. In your time in California, did you find a different level of openness, of stories, of the paranormal? Was that at all different from the East Coast?
It was. And you know what? I was, that's when I moved to California, I started getting into Buddhism and Zen and meditation. And that's where I really felt like reading the Celestine Prophecy and things like that, where I started having my awakening experiences in California, and things that, dreams that I had kind of growing up, where I felt like I was being lifted off my bed and having these weird kind of scary experiences where I was afraid of the dark. I would constantly sleep with the blankets over my head and make a little hole like I could breathe, like that's going to protect me, right? Like, so it was an interesting time for me spiritually, where it was tough. It was almost like growing up born again Christian, Assemblies of God, where I always kind of had a little bit of, I don't know if I buy all this. And it was tough for me to kind of let go of that and to get into something where I was told as the devil, you're opening up your mind to all these different things. Yeah. But then I realized, this is what I've been looking for, because I feel like the right path is the one that everyone can walk on. And I felt that you could, still be a Christian and have Buddhist kind of methodologies and look at ways like this, being mindful. So that was a real eye opener for me, and it kind of carries my daily life now, and I try to teach my kids that as well.
Beautiful. Yeah, and I wasn't raised with any sort of organized religion, but I just a few days home from a week in Israel and in Jordan, and it was really neat to visit the Holy Land without some sense of pilgrimage to myself, and to really witness that. Good God, like 3 major religions are all fighting over this like one little bit of town, and still are, and don't they see the commonality that's there, as opposed to why are we fighting over, like, just
they all believe it's holy, they all know it's holy, right?
But it's whoever won the last war builds the temple on top of the temple that was under it, and just keeps going up and up, and like, wow, I don't get that part. Like, what? I went to Sermon on the Mount, and there's Christ and the 10 Beatitudes just written. I'm like, well, why wasn't this enough? Here are just, the 10 commandments and these 10 messages. Why did you have to keep splintering and splintering? Like, we've handed the beauty and the soulfulness and the meaningful, and it gets just disrupted, and
the ego,
power grabs, and it's all distorted. But I, again, not being spiritual, but not religious,
right?
Yeah. And there were some places that I walked, I was like, whoa, like I just like stopped and like, what, this is like different air right here now. And
you could feel that energy, right? Wow.
Yeah. Where it was the Church of Annunciation, supposedly the spot where Mary was told by Archangel Gabriel that she's going to have a child, have the virgin birth. And that place, it just felt like the best mom's hug. Wow. And I'm walking in there, I got Larry the lizard that I take a picture. I'm like, hey, I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. There's something special here. I just gotta sit with this. And there were a couple of times like that, and it just like, again, it just takes your breath away. And again, this sense of universality to it, which you don't get if you just grew up in, one version of Sunday school in one church or that church.
Right.
Yeah. But I felt so like safe there at times, and it almost because some of the places are just really long lines, and it's mob scenes. It's almost like religious Disney World, that if this like, boy, if standing on that spot was like something I looked forward to for years, I might be disappointed. It's like chaos, to get there. But as just, I could just go kind of and witness it all. Again, it was surprisingly moving and powerful, even from that respect.
I got to put it on my bucket list.
Yeah. But so what is on your bucket list? Do you want to, do you want to go? Do you want to be taken away by aliens? Like, what's the big like?
I think I already have been taken away, but no. I think I kind of going back to originally moving to LA and writing a movie. I think I would. That's on it. It's on my list. I feel also one thing I would love to do, again with some planning, is I would love to do some kind of stand-up comedy. I'm a big fan of stand-up and making people laugh, and so that'd be something I'd like to see myself do down the road. No pressure, just kind of just do it.
Yeah,
and
cool.
Whatever.
Cool. I had a business coach once that made all of her clients take improv classes.
Oh, wow, that's great.
Yeah, because, I mean, again, if you're in sales and marketing, you always got to be thinking on your feet or hosting anything, and just learning the skills to be funny on command and not filter yourself, just let you like navigate all aspects of life. And I was like,
that's great.
That's fantastic. And I didn't stick with it long enough for me to take that class, but I was like, hey, that's great advice. But maybe. But I do actually know a few friends that in the last few years have just done that, like walked up, not even telling their friends, just like, oh yeah, last week I did this thing. Like, what? And just to get over the fear of doing it, or always had desire but didn't want the spotlight at all. To go and
it's amazing to me, like speaking in public, and then death rates, they're right there next to each other in people's minds, and it took me a while, I think, to be kind of take the chances and speak in front of people, but I think it was also be able to make people laugh that kind of helped me to be more comfortable doing that.
Yeah, no, I agree. Even when I'm talking to people when it's about suicide and depression, I bring a lot of humor to it, because otherwise it's just
too heavy. Yeah,
it's too much. But that's it. Like I went to Mount Wachusett for my first attempt at college, and I intentionally flunked out. I flunked out because I stopped going because they had a mandatory public speaking class. And second, I'm like, I didn't know that. Oh, fuck that. I'm not. So I stopped going. I have a straight F report card saved somewhere because I was so afraid of public
Andy,
speaking.
that's our other connection too. All right. I went to the Mount for that first year, and the best way I could describe it, I go, this is like 13th grade. This sucks.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why I was like, I want to go California. I want someplace warm. There's more to this than this, That's crazy.
Yeah, it is. And again, just the low opinion I had of myself, the distorted view I had, I was halfway through senior year, I was ranked 3rd in my class.
Wow.
And I was like, what? Like, what the fuck? And like, I'm just a fucking idiot. I'm like, so I tried to not graduate. I self-sabotage everything, but I had college scholarships and stuff. And I was like, I was sure I was a fraud. I couldn't go. So I went to the Mount and flunked out. But they all make for great chapters in future books.
Yes, they do.
So to bring the ship into a close.
Yes.
What's the best way for people to find the podcast?
The best way to find us is you can find us on iTunes. You can find us on Spotify, SoundCloud. If you go to pod617.com /Monsterland, you can find all of our shows. We filmed the first season, and we have those episodes on YouTube. You go to Monsterland TV. But we have everything. Every Tuesday we come up with a new episode, which again, iTunes, SoundCloud, and Spotify.
Cool. And do you have a site for yourself to keep everyone tracking what you're up to?
Yeah, I do. It's Ronny LeBlanc. It's RONNY LeBlanc.com. And then I also have monsterland.media. And we'll start having episodes of the podcast up there, and have different updates as well.
Awesome. So you've given some teases. We know the travel channel's coming. So if I could unlock the big vial of ayahuasca that makes dream comes true, like is there one kind of pie in the sky thing that you would really love to see come out of what you're doing with the paranormal?
Yes. I mean, I really had a vision of seeing a Monsterland movie, coming to at some point, and that's kind of what I'm trying to focus on. But what's really close is seeing Monsterland becoming a TV series where we're going to be going to different locations around the country and the world that are considered Monsterlands, that have UFOs, Bigfoot, orbs. And why is this happening? What are the connections? And kind of creating this little Monsterland matrix map and kind of going through these areas. So that's the goal. I think would be fun to kind of do a little bit of a traveling, but also learning and meeting other people and help to kind of understand what's going on.
Cool. Yeah. One of my favorite trips, a place that I went that I just thought it was just out of the real possibility, I went to Easter Island.
Oh my
Because
gosh.
as a kid, I wanted those things to come out of the ground and be monsters, and and I'm there, and they're telling me, "Well, we believe this." I'm like, "No, shut up! I'm sticking with aliens. Don't give me your reasons and science. I'm here for the fun."
Oh, that's great. Oh, that's on my bucket list too. So I'm gonna have to write that.
Yeah. All right. So when you need a crew, when you need a hand, you let me know. We'll keep.
Please, that'd be amazing. Oh my God.
Cool. And is the Monsterland movie idea, would that be fiction, nonfiction? What?
I think to make it really work, it would have to be fiction. I see it kind of a very Star Wars kind of thing, where you kind of show the interdimensional side and what's kind of going on, maybe from their point of view. So yeah, I see it being more of a fiction. A big movie could be fun.
Cool. So I'm really psyched we finally connected.
Same here, man.
Yeah, we've been in the same like social media circles for a while, but we're finally talking. And
you're going to be on the Monsterland podcast this month in March too, so that's going to be awesome. Do a reading in studio.
Yeah, we'll fire it all up, man.
Great.
Anything goes. But I'm really excited for everything that's happening for you, and
thanks, man.
And again that you're bringing kind of these subjects that were often ridiculed or ignored or people are afraid to talk about, and bring them out into the light of day, and helping people and being that student teacher.
Thank you, brother.
All right, man. Again, check out pod617/Monsterland, Monsterland TV on YouTube, RonnyLeBlanc.com, Monsterland Media. We'll have all those links and more on the show notes at realmenfeel.org. And until next time, be good to yourself. Thank you for listening to Real Men Feel. Reach out to us at realmenfeel@gmail.com. Learn more about Andy Grant at theandygrant.com. Until next time, visit realmenfeel.org or the Real Men Feel Facebook group and share what you thought of this episode. Please give this podcast a review on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you are discovering Real Men Feel.